Hello guys, you are seeing Prime News Australia, where we show you the latest and important news of Australia in the fastest and reliable way. So come, let's start by not delaying 25 big updates of the Australia, especially for you. Before proceeding in the video, comment by commenting from which state you are watching, and also like video so that YouTube can reach this video to more people of Australia.
Severe tropical cyclone Narelle has intensified to a powerful Category 5 storm in the northern Coral Sea and is tracking westward toward far north Queensland. The Bureau of Meteorology warns it could make landfall between Lockhart River and Cooktown late Friday or early Saturday, bringing destructive winds over 200 kilometers per hour, torrential rain, and life-threatening storm surges. Residents are stocking up on essentials, as this could be one of the most severe cyclones to hit the region in decades. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese held an urgent national cabinet meeting with state and territory leaders to coordinate responses to the worsening fuel shortage caused by the Middle East conflict, disrupting global oil supplies. Discussions focused on preventing panic buying, ensuring fair distribution to regional areas where many petrol stations have already closed, and exploring emergency measures like releasing strategic reserves. Treasurer Jim Chalmers delivered a stark pre-budget speech in Melbourne, warning that the ongoing Iran war could drive Australian inflation toward 5% or higher if oil prices climb to $120 per barrel. He outlined scenarios showing billions wiped from the economy and emphasized the need for ambitious tax reforms, spending cuts, and structural savings in the May budget to restore resilience. Australia joined dozens of nations, including Gulf allies, in strongly condemning Iran's attacks on neighboring countries and its blockade of critical shipping channels in the Gulf, following retaliatory strikes by Israel and the U.S. The government highlighted threats to global energy security and merchant vessels, urging de-escalation amid fears of prolonged disruption to oil flows. Australia's tourism industry is reeling from skyrocketing fuel prices linked to the Middle East war, with operators reporting widespread cancellations, reduced bookings, and sharply higher operational costs for transport and aviation. Industry groups warn that without relief, many regional tourism businesses face collapse, and expectations remain low for any prosecutions over fuel-related offenses during the crisis. A curious possum wandered into the gift shop at Hobart Airport and calmly settled among the plush toys section in the departures lounge. Airport staff described the animal as relaxed before safely guiding it outside the terminal without any harm or disruption to passengers, providing a lighthearted moment amid national headlines. The federal government has activated Section 84B of the Migration Act, introducing an arrival pause mechanism that makes previously granted visa approvals conditional on real-time border security and control assessments. The surprise move has unsettled migration agents, airlines, and international travelers, potentially delaying arrivals from certain countries or subclasses amid heightened global tensions. Australian farmers and truck drivers are facing acute hardship from the fuel crisis, with diesel supplies critically low in rural areas, halting transport of produce and essential goods. The shortages threaten food supply chains and agricultural output, as the industry urges government intervention to prioritize rural allocations during the oil supply shock from the Iran conflict. Danish royals visited Tasmania, strengthening cultural and diplomatic ties through engagements in Hobart and surrounding areas. The trip comes amid broader discussions on energy infrastructure vulnerabilities exposed by the Middle East war, with calls for greater self-reliance in fuel and renewables to shield against future global disruptions. Communities across far north Queensland and parts of the Northern Territory are in full preparation mode as severe tropical cyclone Narelle approaches as a Category 5 system. Authorities are urging residents to secure properties, follow emergency broadcasts, and heed evacuation warnings, with the storm expected to bring once-in-a-century impacts to the region. In his pre-budget address, Treasurer Jim Chalmers presented Treasury modeling showing inflation potentially hitting 5.5% under high oil price scenarios from the Iran war. He stressed that bold economic reforms, including targeted savings and structural changes, would be essential in the upcoming budget to counteract the prolonged global energy shock. Rising fuel costs are severely straining Australia's seafood industry, with fishermen facing dramatically higher expenses for boats and refrigeration. Industry representatives fear significant price increases for Easter seafood staples like prawns and fish, which could burden consumers already dealing with broader cost of living pressures from the energy crisis. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese issued a direct appeal to Australians not to hoard fuel, calling panic buying not the Australian way and counterproductive during the supply crisis. His comments came ahead of the national cabinet meeting aimed at unifying state responses and maintaining equitable access amid global oil disruptions. Early polling and projections indicate Labor is on track for a resounding victory in the South Australian state election, with Premier Peter Malinauskas stepping up attacks on One Nation. The result could strengthen Labor's position nationally amid federal challenges from the fuel and economic crises. Unemployment figures released today show Australia's jobless rate has climbed to 4.3%, up from previous months, as the fuel crisis and Middle East war ripple through industries reliant on transport and exports. Economists attribute the rise to reduced hiring in agriculture, mining, logistics, and tourism amid soaring diesel costs and supply disruptions, prompting calls for targeted job support measures in the upcoming federal budget. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, ACCC, has launched an investigation into allegations of anti-competitive conduct by some regional fuel retailers during the current shortage. Reports suggest price gouging and uneven supply distribution in rural areas, with complaints from truck drivers and farmers about inflated prices at select stations while others remain dry. The probe aims to ensure fair practices amid the oil supply shock from the Iran conflict. Severe tropical cyclone Narelle has intensified further overnight, now sustaining winds near 315 kilometers per hour with gusts exceeding that as it barrels toward far north Queensland. Authorities warn of widespread destruction upon landfall, expected Friday morning between Lockhart River and Cooktown, marking a potential once-in-a-century event. Evacuations of tourists and remote communities are underway, schools closed, and emergency services on high alert for flooding and infrastructure damage. High fuel prices stemming from the Iran war are forcing many Australians to cancel domestic travel plans, including road trips, flights, and cruises, particularly to regional and remote areas. Travelers report concerns over fuel availability in outback towns, leading to postponed holidays and business trips. Tourism operators note sharp drops in bookings, exacerbating the sector's challenges as the energy crisis continues to drive up operational costs nationwide. Persistent gaps remain in key socio-economic indicators for Indigenous Australians, despite ongoing closing the gap efforts. Advocates are calling for accelerated policy action, increased funding, and targeted programs to address disparities in health, education, employment, and justice outcomes across communities. The Matildas have been drawn against strong opponents in the upcoming Asian Cup, providing clarity for their tournament preparations. The squad is focusing on training and strategy to build on recent successes and aim for another deep run in the competition. A light aircraft narrowly avoided collision with an F-35 fighter jet, coming within just 7.6 meters in a dramatic near-miss incident over Australian airspace. Aviation authorities are investigating the close call, which has renewed safety concerns in shared military-civilian flight zones. Unions at BHP are demanding substantial pay increases, including up to $20,000 bonuses for night shifts, in tough negotiations with the company's new leadership. Workers cite challenging conditions and inflation pressures as key drivers behind the push for better compensation packages. Jetstar passengers can continue accessing Qantas lounges under updated rules, but at a much higher additional fee. The change reflects evolving partnership terms between the airlines amid rising operational costs from fuel price surges. Australia's ongoing workforce shortages are costing the economy billions each year, with women disproportionately affected by participation barriers. Reports highlight the need for urgent reforms in childcare, flexible work, and skills training to address the crisis and boost productivity. Northern Australia is enduring one of its wettest Marches on record, with relentless monsoonal rains causing widespread flooding in rivers like the Katherine. Emergency services are monitoring rising water levels and supporting affected communities as the extreme weather continues. Sydney police arrested a teenager after reports of a BB gun being fired at Rose Bay Secondary College, prompting a brief school lockdown. No injuries occurred, but the incident has raised concerns about school safety and prompted an investigation. Radio personality Christian O'Connell experienced a significant ratings drop in the first survey results for 2026, losing ground in key demographics. Industry analysts are examining factors behind the decline in his breakfast show listenership. Stop. Prime Minister Albanese expressed cautious hope for an end to the Iran conflict, noting that key military objectives have been met by allies. Meanwhile, the government is preparing to release millions of litres from fuel reserves to ease shortages in regional and hard-hit areas across Australia.